In February of 1987, following the crisis that would forever change the landscape of the DCU, three men were brought together to tell the tales of the Justice League for this new post-crisis universe. But there was a problem. Characters like Superman, Wonder Woman, and The Flash were going through their own post-crisis reboots at the time, and the creatives in charge of redefining these characters were more than a little reluctant to allow others to tell stories about their babies. Stories that might contradict what they were trying to build in each of their own books. And so a new team was chosen. A team that, on paper, should never have worked, should never have sold, and should never have become the runaway hit that it certainly came to be. Hailed by many as the Bwa-ha-ha era of the Justice League, I'm going to take a look at the series one issue at a time to rediscover what it was that I loved about the book and to dispel the idea that the series was nothing more than B-list characters, foolishness, and a constant barrage of Bwa-ha-ha. But first, before the music comes in, full disclosure here, folks, I did an episode about this comic way back in season 1. In fact, it was episode number 11 from September of 2019. And frankly, after listening to it just now, there really doesn't seem to be much of a point of re-recording my thoughts all over again when I've already said everything I wanted to say way back then. So rather than give you something new, here is episode number 11 with a bit of an edit done onto it. Done to it? I don't know. Enjoy. The following podcast is going to contain spoilers, along with me, just a regular guy, talking about all the things I love, such as comics, movies, television, music, and books. So yeah, proceed at your own risk. Welcome to another episode of Just Another Fanboy. I'm your host, Steven, and today I'm talking comics. In fact, I'm talking about one comic in particular, Justice League #1 from May of 1987. The credits are as follows. Keith Giffen, plot and breakdowns. J.M. DeMatteis, script. Kevin Maguire on the pencils. Terry Austin, inks. He inked it. He's inking the crap out of this book. Gene D'Angelo is on colors. Bob Lappin is the letterer. And Andrew Helfer was the editor. So this is the Justice League title that sprang out of Crisis on Infinite Earths. If you're not aware, back in 85, 86, DC decided they needed to reboot their continuity, get rid of the multiverse, start over with one fresh world, one fresh universe, none of this other multiverse crap. And so they created Crisis on Infinite Earths, which I am talking about over on Event or Else. Check it out if you want to. But if you're already subscribed to the Everything or Else feed, you're already listening to it. Anyway, once that series was over, once those 12 issues were over, they started to kind of reboot, revitalize, refresh certain titles. John Byrne gave us Superman. Mike Grell gave us Green Arrow. And Giffen, Maguire, and DeMatteis gave us the Justice League. This was not your daddy's Justice League or your mama's Justice League. This was a different take on the Justice League. Looking back on it, most people refer to this era as the Bwa-ha-ha era, primarily because there were instances in which the characters would laugh heartily and say, Bwa-ha-ha. But this was more of a, if it could be said that a sitcom was made about superheroes, that's what this Justice League was. It had comedy and drama, and it was almost like everyday real life superheroes to a certain extent. It was probably the closest that DC has ever come to making their books feel like this could happen in real life, at least up to that point, from what I recall, having not really read a lot of DC before then. So I'm talking out of my behind here. So we've got a new Justice League coming together, and the members are Batman, Captain Marvel, or you know him now as Shazam, Martian Manhunter, Black Canary, Blue Beetle, Guy Gardner, Green Lantern, he's a Green Lantern, and Mr. Miracle. The book opens up with Guy Gardner sitting at I guess you would call it the conference table in the main hall, the main room of the Justice League headquarters. And he's thinking to himself that basically when everybody comes together, he is going to announce that he will lead, he will run the Justice League. We quickly learn that Guy Gardner is a cocky, arrogant kind of guy. He loves Rambo. He loves Ronald Reagan. He is a cocky, arrogant, meat-eating, in-your-face, conservative Republican who's ready to leap into any fight and kick anybody's butt. That's who Guy Gardner is. And he's got a bowl cut, and he's pretty funny. He's pretty funny in this book. So as he's sitting there thinking about this, members start to arrive. Black Canary is first, and then Mr. Miracle arrives, and they're coming in by this teleportation tube. And Mr. Miracle has with him Oberon, who is a dwarf. And Oberon is kind of like his manager. He's not a superpowered guy. Mr. Miracle does he's like an escape artist. So he does like TV appearances and stuff, and Oberon is his manager. Right away, Guy Gardner gets into it with Oberon. He's kind of mouthing off to Black Canary, she's not taking any of his crap. From the get-go, she's holding her own. She's not taking any of his crap from him. Oberon kind of steps up to Guy Gardner, and those two end up getting into it. Captain Marvel shows up. And before you know it, there's just this all-out brawl going on in the main room of the Justice League headquarters. That is when Batman arrives with another member of the Justice League I neglected because he's really not in this issue at all, Dr. Fate. And they walk into this to the conference room area, and there's just the rest of the Justice League, and they're having a big brawl. And I think he makes a comment, this happens anytime you get superheroes together in a room at one time. This is going to happen. Dr. Fate suggests, he volunteers to break it up, and Batman says, no, I'll take care of it. And he just walks into the room, and everything kind of breaks up. Everybody notices him there. He's walking calmly across the room. People are separating. And he goes right up to Guy Gardner, and he basically tells him to sit down. He's like, sit down. And Guy Gardner's like, oh, okay, whatever. Batman is a very commanding presence. And so he brings the first meeting of this new Justice League to order, and he does it by reading off their charter first, which you can see everybody at the table as he finishes up reading the charter. They're all very bored, and Batman doesn't care. Batman is by the book. He's by the rules. He is the straight man in this comic. Batman is your straight man. Well, then we go to this guy who's watching all this stuff on the news. He's got this bank of monitors. He's like a business guy. He comes into the office. The secretary says hello to him. He goes into his office. He turns on all of his TVs. He's watching all this footage about the new Justice League, and he's scrawling on a piece of paper. And at one point, he writes down Justice League of America, and then he scratches out the of America. Then we go to the United Nations, and we meet Dr. Light. This is where I get kind of confused in the DC continuity, because from what I remember, from what I've read, there are two different Dr. Lights. There's a female Dr. Light who is a good guy, and there is a male Dr. Light who is a bad guy and caused a big ruckus in Identity Crisis some years ago. But this is the female Dr. Light. She's a good guy. She's at the United Nations. She's supposed to present something, and her Justice League communicator starts beeping. And so she's in the bathroom or wherever, and she's trying to shut it off. And I have to note, granted, this was 87, but this Justice League communicator device, and it's more of an alert. The only thing you ever see it do is it beeps out at you, and then you can switch on an alert to alert the other members of the Justice League. Well, it's a big round disc with a switch in the middle. And I have to assume, granted, again, it is 1987, and the technology in 1987, while still fairly advanced, America was still a fairly advanced society. It's not what it is now. But they did have beepers back then, and beepers were not nearly as big as this giant disc that was bigger than her hand. And yet all it had on it was like a switch. And you would think that the Justice League would be able to, frickin' with the resources that the Justice League has, that they could have created something a bit smaller. But let's just get past that. So we find out that this businessman, Maxwell Lord, visited her at one point and invited her to join the Justice League. Now, he has nothing to do with the Justice League, but he tells her that he does, and he gives her the communication device. Once she gets it shut off, she suddenly discovers that there are terrorists in the UN, and they've taken over, and there's a guy up on the dais in front of the whole collection of representatives, and he's got a bomb biografted to his chest that is going to go off if he dies. And there's actually a very funny moment where there's news footage of what's going on, and you can hear the anchor talking about this, and the anchor is talking to I can't remember if it's a psychologist. I think it's like somebody from Star Labs. And the anchor says something like, "Now, based on what you can see here in this footage, Doctor, is it true that bomb would go off if this terrorist is killed? I mean, if the terrorist dies, knowing that the plan would be to go in and shoot this terrorist in the head, but they want to make sure that that's not going to happen." So anyway, Dr. Light activates her device. It alerts at Justice League headquarters. Batman's really confused because all the members of the Justice League are there, but it comes up on the computer as Dr. Light. He's even more confused about that, but they all pile into the Bug. This is the Beetle's big beetle-shaped airship, and they fly over to the United Nations. And Batman, he takes charge, of course, and he has certain jobs for everybody. Guy Gardner wants to just fly in and mop it up. But Batman is, telling him, nope, this is what you're going to do. And it seems like everybody he gives an order to. This is Black Canary, I want you to do this. Captain Marvel this, and Blue Beetle this, and all that. Everybody questions. Nobody just takes his orders, are you sure you want me to do this, Batman? Maybe I could do this. And he's starting to get really frustrated. Why is everybody questioning my orders? Well, the Blue Beetle, during this whole affair, he's stuck up in the Bug, and he's monitoring communications. And it's a really funny moment because he's up there and he's very disgruntled because he could offer a lot to this group. But of course, Batman has him up there monitoring the communications, and he's actually tapped in to the terrorists, radio feed. And so as the rest of the Justice League are in the United Nations building, as they are taking out terrorists, the main guy is terrorist number 1, please check in. And then the Blue Beetle will respond. And he's like, at one point, he's got his finger, he's plugging up his nose to do like a funny accent. And he's like, "This is terrorist number 1. Everything is okay over at my end." And he feels very embarrassed about that. He's like, this is what I'm doing. I'm the Blue Beetle. I should be doing more. This is ridiculous. Guy Gardner, on the other hand, what he is supposed to be doing, he, instead of storming the United Nations building and just taking everybody out, which is what he wants to do, Batman has him hovering above the United Nations building, and he's using his ring to create a force field over the entire structure to keep everybody inside. But then once everybody is in place, he triggers the plan to go, and that's when part of his plan is to have Guy Gardner fly in, and he uses his ring to knock out all the terrorists. And there's only the one guy left, and he's the guy with the bomb to his chest. And he's like, I'm gonna blow everybody up. You guys better back off because I'm gonna do it. Don't mess with me. And Batman says, "Go ahead." And he has Mr. Miracle evacuate everybody. And the guy's like, "I'm not joking. Don't test me, Batman, because I'll do it." Batman's like, "Hey, You do what you got to do. And then he leaves, and we find out later that the terrorist ends up committing suicide because his bomb wouldn't go off. And you find out we end up at the end of the issue back in Maxwell Lord's office. And I don't think we see his face in the entire issue. We may not even know that his name is Maxwell Lord at this point. I honestly can't remember now. But he's watching the footage on his TVs, and he's thinking to himself, gee, it's too bad the terrorist bomb didn't go off. And then you see that there's this mechanism on his desk, and he goes, well, maybe I should have given him the firing pin to the bomb. And then that's how it ends. And so who is this guy? What is he doing? Why is he hiring terrorists? Why is he telling other superheroes that they're in the Justice League? What's going on? And of course you learn as you read the rest of the series. And I was reading these as they were coming out. At one point, I think my older brother was getting them because I wasn't quite, well, it would have been 87. So I would have been maybe a sophomore in high school at this point. But I don't think I was driving into comic book stores and buying comics at that point. I don't think that was happening for another year or two. So I think the early issues my brother was getting, and once I started collecting comics, then I was buying the issues later. And I remember really, really, really enjoying this title. And at one point, the book is called Justice League. It's not called the Justice League of America because Maxwell Lord comes in and he does end up becoming a part of the Justice League. He wants to take it international. He doesn't want it to be just the Justice League of America. He wants it to be international. And then at some point, a second title comes in called Justice League Europe. So they changed the name of the book to Justice League International for a little bit. And then they bring in another title called Justice League Europe that had characters like, I think the Flash was in Justice League Europe. You had Captain Atom, Fire and Ice. I think Fire and Ice ended up on Justice League, the regular series. I don't remember. It's been a long time. But I know that Bart Sears was the artist on Justice League Europe. And he's a very stylized, muscly kind of artist. Matter of fact, he did a column. I think it started out in Wizard magazine, but he did a drawing tutorial column called Brutes and Babes. And that sums up his art right there. Brutes and Babes. But I got the first Justice League International trade from Comixology, and I'm really looking forward to going through, and I think there might be 5 or 6 altogether, but I'm really looking forward to going through and reading the whole series. I remember the character, the villain, Despero, if that is his name. He shows up. He's an alien despot that I remember that storyline being really good. I remember there being moments of just utter silliness, but then moments of real dramatic tension, heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching, heartstrings pulling type of stuff. And that, to me, those are the best stories. Anytime that you can read a story and in some moments you're laughing and it's just pure silliness and you love these characters so much because they're so funny and they're so real but then you twist it and something really bad happens, and then that makes the drama even more, well, dramatic because you've seen the lighter side and you've grown to like these characters because of it. You know, you start some of these stories that are just dark from the get-go and they never go anywhere. They're just dark, 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 dark. That gets old after a while. You have to have the light and the dark. You have to weave it in and out. There has to be, and it's not easy to do. And but I think those make the best stories. Stories that on the surface, you know, I think for a lot of people, they look back at the Justice League International books and they dismiss it. That's why they call it the Bwa-ha-ha League. They dismiss it as just a bunch of Three Stoogery type of stuff, but it's not. And I think it's a shame that people dismiss it like that at times, because there are some just really deep stories in there that are really deep and meaningful. Obviously, I'm not writing for this book because I can't think of anything to say about it. Goodness gracious. That was terrible. Anyway, Justice League, issue number 1. Great book. Looking forward to reading the rest. This is your episode. I'm Steven, and I'm just another fanboy. Be nice to each other.
I want to thank you for taking the time to listen to the Just Another Fanboy podcast.
Questions and comments can be directed to justanotherfanboy@gmail.com. You can leave us a voicemail or text at 785-318-6673, or find me on Twitter and Instagram by searching for @StephenOrElse. Make sure you join the Steven Says Stuff newsletter, a free Substack at list.justanotherfanboy.com, where I will send every single podcast episode I create right to your inbox the morning of release. You can support the show for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/StephenROr and get episodes just like this one a week before anyone else. I also encourage you to subscribe to the show, leave a 5-star review, and share this episode with a friend. All links will be in the show notes.
Bye-bye, Daddy.
Bye-bye, Daddy.
Good job.